We are broadcasting live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is a special council meeting held on October 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Should indicate that at the present time, this meeting is being conducted by means of electronic participation as predicted by Section 238, subsection 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. Council chambers are not currently open to the public. This meeting can be viewed live or later on our portal. Residents can join the council meeting using various access that has been publicly disseminated. I see that we have a quorum here. Public disclosure of pecuniary interest can be made at this point or at any point in the course of the meeting. And I'd like to call on Councillor Martin to give us the Indigenous land acknowledgement. Councillor Martin, you're muted.
Well, that's no way to start. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Teonantahi, the Adirondack and Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and its resources. Miigwech.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the agenda of session 22-2021 is circulated. Do I have a mover to that? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Mankelo. Any opposed? The motion is carried. I'd like to make a few opening remarks, if I can, to describe the process that we're undertaking this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone, and especially our candidates. We are so fortunate to have such qualified and engaged members of our community step forward and be willing to serve on council for the balance of the term and hopefully consider running in the next election. The process followed up to and including tonight's meeting is described in the filling of council vacancy policy dated September 3rd and approved by council. Briefly, I'll describe that policy. Having decided to appoint someone to council, we advertise for the vacancy and conduct an intake process for individuals to apply. 10 qualified members of the Mono community step forward, and all 10 are with us this evening. Last week, Deputy Mayor Nix and our clerk, Fred Simpson, drew names to determine tonight's order of appearance by candidates. Fred Simpson will call on each candidate in order, and they will have up to 5 minutes to address council. Individual councillors will then have the opportunity to ask questions. As chair of this meeting, I will ensure that we not exceed 15 minutes in total for each candidate. After all candidates have been heard from, council will vote. As voting involves identifiable individuals as defined by the Municipal Act, it will be done offline from the special meeting through a secure and confidential process. Members of council will not know how each other voted, nor the vote totals. The clerk will then announce one of two possible outcomes. Either one candidate has obtained 3 votes and is thereby elected, or no one has achieved 3 votes, in which case council will convene in camera to determine whether a consensus is possible. A second private vote will then be held. If this fails to achieve an election, council will consider whether another discussion in camera should occur or whether we should conduct a draw. I'm confident it will not come to that. The successful candidate will be sworn into office at council's next regular meeting on October 26th at 9 a.m. in the morning. So I have a motion that the following individuals who have signified in writing that they are legally qualified to hold office and consented to accept the office if they are appointed to fill the vacancy be considered for appointment to fill such vacancy. Robert Bartoletta, John Bush, Elaine Capes, Melinda Davey, Harveen Dhaliwal, Matthew Donovan, Frank Flood, Chris Holroyd, Bob McCrae, and Manjeet Singh. Do I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Mantalo. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And I now call on the Deputy Clerk to call the candidates in the order which was determined by draw.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And with your leave, what I thought is I would indicate the entire order now so that all candidates know when they'll be coming up, and then call the first candidate from that list.
Thank you.
Okay, so as Mayor Creelman indicated, the names were drawn by Deputy Mayor Nix, witnessed by myself, and the order for this evening's presentation will be as follows: Frank Flood, Chris Holdroyd, Elaine Capes, Matthew Donovan, Manjeet Singh, John Butch, Melinda Davey, Robert Bartolotta, Harveen Dhaliwal, and Bob McCrae. So, Mr. Floyd, it's your opportunity to give an up to a 5-minute presentation.
Frank Flood?
Yes, I'm just adjusting the controls here for mic and camera. And I do sometimes get called Floyd, but Flood is the actual last name. Good evening, Mayor Creelman, Deputy Mayor Nix, Councilors Bacatello, Martin, all the staff, and all the candidates that are here running for the councillor position. During the last year of flying as captain on the 777 for Air Canada, I had the privilege to not only repatriate fellow Canadians stranded abroad, but I also, for 6 months, flew PPE, precious cargo, etc. This period of my career included a grueling schedule under challenging conditions, and it spoke to me. I like a challenge. I truly enjoy making a contribution to not only community, but my company and the country. Recent events here with the Greenwood pit decision. I don't know how many have actually looked at it, but this is an example of one of my strengths. In the very introduction paragraph, it mentions Highway 8. Highway 8 is not in mono. Highway 8 is one of the oldest highways in Ontario between Goderich and Dundas. That's one error I caught. They mention Highway 7. Highway 7 is quite a bit south, also not in the town of Mono. They call us a township. We have not been a township since May of 1999. I am particularly good with details. I know Fred Nix is. I notice him nodding. And I have worked with Fred and John snorkeling there, whatever you call it. These details are important. The last part of that is the concession 3. If you Google concession 3, you will find it's not in mono. There's west of here, Ontario, and there's east of here, Ontario. So these are the types of details that I'm particularly good at finding, analyzing, and through a collaborative approach, find solutions for the people of Mono. I know a lot of people think of me as a pilot and a rather nice guy, according to my neighbors, but actually I do have a little bit of a human side that not a lot of people are aware goes on in the pilot community. I'll finish off by just giving you a brief statement here. Committee members have a genuine interest in helping others and act with discretion, tact, and empathy. And that's on a peer group that I've been involved in, helping pilots for 28 years. I still hold the highest medical certificate in the world, called Category 1. I'm happy, I'm energetic, I'm ready to start next week. Thank you for allowing this opportunity.
Thank you, Frank. Do members of council have questions? Fred.
Yes. Frank, there's no rules governing this, but it's been my experience that people on council, they tend to focus and become more expertise in certain areas, and it works out well because then we all have our little specialties. If you were elected to council or appointed tonight, what areas interest you most? Is it finance? Is it social conditions? Is it land use? Is it official plan items? Is it recreation? Where do your interests lie if you were appointed to council?
Thank you, Fred. My interest would be to serve, and that would start with helping everybody else on the council. To answer directly your question, something rather technical: land use, land planning, strategic planning, the use of the 3 E's, diving into some cumbersome files that maybe haven't been actioned for a while. I'm good with people, but I'm really good with challenging situations. And I can see myself particularly with bylaws, land use, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Yes, Sharon.
Good evening, Frank.
Good evening.
Have you any concerns or perhaps maybe even suggestions about how money is spent in Mono?
I have 5 or 10 years ago got into quite a few more meetings, followed the line by line. I am thrilled to be a member of Mono, and I trust the people that are there and doing the job. To answer your question directly, I don't pretend to be a money expert, but I also have been around long enough to know that there is a good time to spend money and a good time not. I don't mind spending money. I think we need good bang for our buck, and we need good reserves. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Frank? Ralph.
Ralph, you're muted, Ralph.
I'm trying to outdo Sharon. Frank, thanks very much for applying. It's appreciated.
My pleasure.
If you don't one of the lucky persons to be elected now, would you be interested in applying to at the next election a year in November?
I would be most interested in applying, and in the meantime, I'd be willing to do council work as well. Committee work.
Okay, thank you. Thinking back to your flying experience, could you tell us about any particular episode or activity that gave you particular pleasure?
I would say that anybody that's looked at my LinkedIn account probably knows that I participated as the first flight from Montreal to Haiti in 2010. We flew 767 on an 18-hour mission, and it was following the earthquake. I am a technical pilot, so not only did I fly 70 hours a month, but I also participated in development of technologies, procedures, and policies so that we were able to actually on the fly coordinate with many governments this very challenging mission. So I'm particularly proud that we went well beyond the contract in the interest of helping these people, and it is an excellent memory. Other than the recent cargo and PPE flying I did for 6 months, that mission to Haiti was one of my best. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Frank? Fred?
That's twice you've used the term TPE. I'm not familiar with flying. What's TPE, Frank?
That's okay. It's actually, I lived and breathed this for a year and a half. It's the personal protection equipment. You know, the masks, the gowns, the breathing apparatuses, everything that we should have been making and had stockpiled that we didn't do.
Any follow-ups? Frank, how long have you lived in Mona?
25 years. In fact, this month is 25 years.
And what do you see as the sort of the major challenges going forward? And I know you've been an observer of the town in the past, but apart from the Greenwood issue, do you see any other issues that we're going to need to tackle coming forward?
Well, the wireless, and you do post on that from time to time. The wireless, the being connected for our residents, who, as you know, due to demographics, will be changing. So we need to be more connected as a community. And I believe that if we're not mindful, we will lose the special feeling that exists here. So in order to keep that special feeling that I suspect everybody in this group, not only on council, but that is sitting behind their cameras tonight, they feel it or they wouldn't be here. We need to look for mechanisms, people, programs, strategies to energize and continue to energize just how special Mono is.
Thank you. Any last questions for Frank? Frank, thank you very much for your application and your interest, and the council is grateful that people such as yourself step forward and offer yourself to public service.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Fred Simpson, our next candidate.
Next candidate, Your Worship, is Chris Holroyd.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Chris, we
Seeing
can.
nodding. Ah, good. Hello, John. How are you, Your Worship?
Good.
Great. Hello, Sharon, Ralph. I miss our little chats at the front door. And Fred, nice to see you again. There you go. Nice to be with you people. Do you want me to just plow in there?
The floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd also like to say hello to the people of Mona who are watching and to the other hopeful council candidates. I'm going to follow the wedding speech rule, being brief, be sincere, and be seated. As I'm already seated, I'm 1/3 of the way to the end. I don't envy your job tonight. You have so many talented people running for this position. Perhaps you should appoint them all and start a multinational corporation and fund Mona residents' tax bills. Just a thought. I had the privilege of serving on Mono Council 18 years ago under John Curlman's leadership. It was an exciting but difficult time in municipal politics, as you remember, because a wave of amalgamation swept Ontario. In the end, only half the number of municipalities stayed independent. Thanks largely to John's efforts, Mono remained one of them. Of course, John had to change his name tag from Reeve to Mayor. When I was elected, I had a list of personal projects to accomplish. Selfishly, I guess I wanted to make a name for myself, but looking back, the satisfaction was just enjoying the positive results of teamwork in moving our town forward. You know, residents mistakenly believe sometimes that council does everything, but there's a much wider contribution from volunteer citizens committees, town staff, including the chief, the town planner, clerk, road supervisor, and many others. So it's really a team effort, and I appreciate that. And council is just the public face of our local government. I had the privilege of meeting George Boak, who is a world-famous architect who lived on the Mono-Adj town line. And I asked him which one of his building designs was his favorite. He replied he never thought of his work that way. His greatest pleasure came not so much from his own achievements, it came from when he knew his customers were completely satisfied. As councillor, his comment resonated with me at the time. The greatest satisfaction that has stayed with me from serving our community came from times Mona residents would approach and say, "Thanks for your help. Please pass on my appreciation to all concerned. You guys did a great job." It's not always easy to empathize with residents, as you know. It's tougher than most people think. When they have problems, speaking in front of council can be an intimidating process. It takes a lot of nerve to stand up and speak one's mind in front of strangers or even over the internet like we're doing tonight. I've experienced residents with a full head of steam rise to their feet and erupt. But I learned to focus, be respectful, and place myself in their shoes to better understand their problems, and most importantly, help in a team effort to find solutions. The empathy I practiced then, I use every day now. I have the honor of being a chosen top writer for Medium.com in the humor and satire category. I'm essentially a political analyst, and I bring to light problems in the American political system, exaggerate them with humor, and offer real solutions to repair them. I find readers absorb more when entertained, and humor opens the mind to enlightenment and authenticity. Aside from my humorous job, my interest in committing to serve our community is a very serious one. I would appreciate the opportunity to once again be helpful to my Mono neighbors by representing them on council. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Fred. Oh, sorry, I guess that's up to me.
I should wait for John to recognize me.
Oh, sorry.
Can I go ahead, John? You're muted, but I saw you nod. Chris, I got a trick question for you.
Oh, great.
It's a trick question. I wasn't going to ask it, but something you just said about your experience made me think, yeah, ask Chris this question. It's trick because there's no answer. There's no right or wrong answer. So it really doesn't matter what you say. John and I sat in a session last week and listened to a consultant. This is under the Places to Grow Act. I'm no legislative expert, Chris, but that act, we set population targets, employment targets, and then we make sure our land use planning can accommodate those number of people and those number of jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The province has said they want this development or these new people to move into serviced areas, i.e. with water, presumably with sewage, and they want them to be in current settlement areas or adjoining to settlement areas. I said, that's fine. This is good. This is good from the province to give us this guidance. And then I was looking at the numbers. Dufferin County by 2051 is going to grow to 95,000 people. Okay, that's fine. Most of it will be in Grand Valley, Shelburne, and Orangeville. But read the numbers carefully. They want Mono to take it about, I don't have the exact numbers, approximately another 2,000 people. So here's the question. Chris, if you were on council what would you do? What would you do as a counselor? I mean, we're not developers. We can't go out and start building houses. And if part of your answer is what you might say to the provincial government, I'd ask you to be polite tonight. But what I'm I'm confounded by this question. What are we going to do on council to be in compliance with the Places to Grow Act and these population targets that somehow we're supposed to do something with when we have basically have no more serviced land? Your turn, Chris. It's a hard question to answer, but I'm counting on your sense of humor to answer.
I don't know how funny it is. Well, we've got what, about 8,800 people now. And certainly when I came on a quarter of a century ago, it was somewhere around 5 or 6, I guess. Somehow we've managed to take that growth in. I mean, it's only recently that our growth has taken place in areas where we use septic. We never had septic before, really, but now there's places where that's available. I'm just not sure, first of all, whether those numbers can be debated with the province. It doesn't sound like they can. But certainly we have to figure out ways of sharing the responsibility with growth in Ontario. You know, Canada is in a rare situation where we take in a lot of people from around the world every year, and more than most people, and it's part of our strength. And it is part of our strength, and people don't realize it because our cities are positioned in such a way where people often come from different countries to only grow in like one or two directions. You know, if you're in Toronto, you can't grow into Lake Ontario. If you're in Vancouver, you can't grow into the ocean. And the same with St. John's and what have you. And, you know, the Americans are always talking about not wanting immigration and stuff, but immigration has been such a boon to us because it's not only made the people who are already established in these cities wealthy, but as, you know, houses have spread out, development has spread out, it's created a huge economy for people in the building industry and the service industry or whatever. Those are great jobs. They're middle-class jobs, and it's brought a lot of wealth to Canada, taking in all these people. And at some point, we also have to share that responsibility. We're a little on the outside of it, and you know, there's not a lot of areas in Mono. I think you can still, you know, keep Mono's special nature, you know, without you know, making some damage to them. So I think, I don't know, it's up to our own municipal planning to try and come up with areas that would be next in line for newer developments and take them in such a way that they would conform as much as possible to what we've already done with the certain developments that have come into Mono. I certainly want to stay away from this monster housing kind of thing. That's a real eyesore, and that's something that we have to fight. But if we've taken in, you know, so many thousand people since I've been here, there's probably a little more room we could squeeze people in if we really had to.
Thank you. Sharon,
Hi, Sharon.
you're on mute.
Microphone. Still muted.
I want to
There you
stay
go.
on in case something happens.
You don't have a barking dog.
Sorry, Chris? What
You
was
don't have a
that?
barking dog.
Husband. I don't know if you've been to Mono's town hall meetings, but we've seemed to manage to have a couple a year. It's been a struggle this last couple of years, 2 years, of course. There's always a debate about what the content will be. Will it be topics that are of interest? Quite often it's interest of the council and discussions around that, or should it be strictly a Q&A for staff and council? So it's what, how do we proceed with town hall meetings?
Well, I mean, that probably comes a lot from the residents who want to show up at those meetings and have something to say. You know, I mean, whatever they're interested in, that it's outside of, you know, council regular, you know, programming, but they think it might be valuable to discuss going forward for the town. I think that would just come from the residents who show up at these meetings. there's usually, well, I seem to recall about 100 people you see all the time and who have active interest in the town, and they're sort of an outreach group for everybody else. But, I think it really would come from the people who are generally around you who have interests in particular topics. Council can't waste its time too much. It has very little time. It's got 2 meetings a month, and there's a lot of bureaucracy to go through, and there's a lot of trials and tribulations of things that happen in town that gets everybody involved, and those are always going to take a precedence.
Thank you. Any other questions of Chris? Ralph?
Microphone.
Chris, thanks for applying. I appreciate it.
Hey, great.
Many of us think that Mona is a unique place, and you just used the term the special nature of Mona. In a few sentences, just capsulize what you consider to be Mona's special nature.
Thinking back to when I first came, the adjustments I made, getting to know people from all sorts of walks of life I met in Mono who seem to have a lot in common. If you look around, especially at days like today, where the seasons are coming upon us, you realize you get the full pressure of seasons here in Mono because it's just so beautiful. The trails are gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful place to be. We're lucky to be here. We've won the lottery by being here. And I've got to know, farmers and construction people and, people who like the residential life and people who like the farming life. And we all have different interests, but we seem to come together and have the one thing in common, that we are so lucky to be here and share the bounties of nature in this place. And most of us want to preserve that as much as possible.
Thank you. Chris, in 20 seconds or less, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong?
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? The one thing I noticed, and I've noticed a lot lately, is that people are using this, it's better to say you're sorry than ask permission kind of routine to do things on their property. And I'm just wondering if the communication can't be improved perhaps on the website or information in our tax passed off to people to tell them just what they can do, be positive about it, rather than use the bylaw negativity of saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And try and get ahead of the problem of people making these bad decisions with their properties. I've always firmly believed that you should never do anything on your property that will affect the enjoyment or value of your neighbor's property. And perhaps we should start with first principles in describing what people can and cannot do. What are you not doing well? What are you doing well? The town's being run perfectly. I've never been able to find anything wrong with it. It's the perfect type of political situation. None of you are corrupt. The place is run by committee. You have great people helping out. Most of you are here for noblesse oblige reasons, to help people. And you just want to see all of you have nice places in Mono, and you want everyone else to enjoy it the same way you do. It's just a great political system. It doesn't ask a lot of us, and it doesn't take anything from us. And we're glad to have all you guys as council. And I have absolutely no complaints about how Mono's run, and haven't for years.
Thank you. And thank you for your application.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Brad Simpson?
Next up is Elaine Capes.
Mayor Creelman and Council, my name is Elaine Capes. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'd like to share what I believe I have to offer to the position of councillor. Since relocating our family to Mono in 2005, I've been persistently and consistently involved in community, in our neighborhood, in our children's school, in the not-for-profit sector, and in my work as a contracted facilitator, I'm responsible for collaboration and engagement across multiple organizations. I'd like to highlight 3 of those engagements. December last year, I hosted a 3-hour courageous conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which included presentations from others on their work in this area, as well as examining white privilege. On behalf of the Dufferin Community Foundation, I designed and facilitated 2 virtual youth engagement sessions, exploring what our youth value about Dufferin County and what they wish for the future. Over the past year, I participated in the development of our provincially mandated Dufferin County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and now sit on the integration table accountable to meet the plan deliverables. In my role as director and president of MC Squared, the Mono Malmer Citizens Coalition, I've been keeping an awareness of what's going on generally with land use, property standards, and what makes it to the council agendas that has an impact on the environment and well-functioning of our municipal and county government. I've demonstrated my interest in municipal process since 2008, attending council meetings, applying for a previous vacancy, running for election in 2010, 2014, and 2018, and having the pleasure of representing Mono citizens from 2010 to 2014 as a councillor, and participating as the town representative on the Headwaters Tourism Board, the Rosemont Fire Board, and the Heritage Committee. As a past councillor, I was directly involved in the OP review, creating the strategic plan, developing the budgeting process with departmental business plans, and leading a review of the noise bylaw, which I see is on the unfinished council business report, along with some items addressing land use, what is desirable and what isn't. I applaud your recent decision to enforce the OP regarding on the 9 application and staying true to the 3 E's in the strategic plan. I've maintained my membership to the municipal world, keeping connected to and sharing the issues that arise in their publications and YouTubes. My firsthand knowledge of operational structure, policy, process, and procedure makes me confident that I can get up to speed quickly and participate fully upon being sworn in. And I graciously accept the offer of mentoring to be familiarized with any changes and revisions that have been made since the end of my term in 2014. I have a passion for the importance of place and placemaking, including our built and natural environment and the role that plays in community well-being and creating a sense of community belonging. I see land use and preserving our natural environment for the children of our children as a priority. This is a valuable asset to protect. I'm committed to maintaining Mono's beauty, respecting the land we occupy, using the instruments like our OP, zoning, and bylaws for effective land use management, appreciating our history and culture, and being deliberate about engagement and inclusion for community well-being as our demographics and urban and rural density evolve. My reasons for applying and my desire for serving Mono citizens on council also fit with my personal values of clarity, teamwork, achievement, and continuous learning, and my professional purpose to commit my skill, knowledge, and experience for making a difference to individual, community, and population well-being. In conclusion, I believe my 2-page submission of qualifications and my presentation demonstrate the passion, participation, and professionalism I offer to the position of councillor to contribute to the efficiency of our operations, preserving our rural character, and making a positive contribution to the quality of life of our citizens, and to do so in a collaborative manner. I'm happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Brett.
All right, Elaine, I got a real tough one for you. It has to do with budgets and finance.
Mhm.
And every year except I think one since I've been on council, we've managed to hold our budget increase to the same as the Ontario CPI. So our expenditures are only going up by the same rate as the consumer price index. I have a terrible feeling, and you were on council for a few of those years when we did it. I think that's when you were on council, there was one exception to that. I have an awful feeling, even though I haven't seen any numbers, that we're in trouble this year. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it again this year. And we have one more year in our term of office. So if you were on council as of the end of the meeting tonight, and you started to confront the budget next week, what would you do if it turns out we can't, if it was going to be very difficult to hold our increase in expenditures to the same rate of inflation as the consumer price index? What would you do if you were in my shoes?
Mhm. Thank you, Your Worship. In response to Deputy Mayor Nix, first of all, I'd have to reduce your salary. We'll start with that. So I don't think I think it's still a valid goal to have, and I think it should be a starting point. And I think just like every budget, you have to weigh needs against wants. And so top priority is things that we need, and maybe what suffers is things that we want. And I actually believe too that there needs to be consultation with the community. Things that we can't avoid costs for, like road repairs and things like that. I know that there's lots of really good work being done in the roads department to find different aggregate and improve the conditions of roads, so we don't have to fill them every other day and send out the graders and things like that. But I do believe that we need to hold costs. I don't believe in frivolous spending, and I believe we need to be accountable to our citizens for their tax dollars. It's been hard for people to earn money over the last couple of years because of COVID. And I think we need to make sure that we're responsible to our citizens to make sure we're not spending money we don't need to spend.
Follow-up question, Your Worship.
Yes.
Does Mono have any frivolous expenditures now in its budget?
Thank you, Your Worship. In response to Deputy Mayor Nix, I would say I hope not, but I haven't seen this year's budget yet. So I would have to see this year's budget. So I would say no, but sometimes you have to make tough choices, right? So what are the tough choices? We did make some tough choices when I was on council. There were some roads that were determined that there was a side collapse. It was on my road even. And we actually did a workaround, so we didn't have to spend all the money that was in the budget to do that. So sometimes it's about asking questions to find out what is the problem we're really trying to solve, what is the need we're really trying to meet, and then making sure that we've looked at all of the options. Does that help?
Thank you, Elaine.
Any further questions? Sharon?
Good evening, Elaine. Can you give me you've given a number of good reasons why you are running for this position right now. Is there one vision you have for the community that drives you? I mean, you've been here before, so what's driving you to participate in municipal politics? There must be something.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. In response to Councillor Martin, I am just a person who wants to be involved. I care about this place that's going to be my forever home. I care about the people who live here. I care about our environment, and I care to the point where I want to be part of the decision making, able to bring my skill, my experience, my knowledge to the table to help, to be there to help make a difference. I just am that kind of person. I like to connect with people. I like to connect people to people. I like to delve into issues. I love learning. I tell people when I was on council before, I learned things I never thought I wanted to know, because it is a very enlightening opportunity. And to me, being on a municipal council is close to the citizens. I'm not interested in party politics. I'm interested in serving the community. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions, Ralph? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Elaine, what unique skill or skills do you bring to the table that would help council?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. In response to Councillor Manklow, I think, Ralph, what I bring is curiosity. I am a very curious person, and I know that staff will probably be chuckling in the background. I probably asked way too many questions when I was on council before. And I do really like to understand what is it we're trying to do? What is it we're trying to solve? What is it we're trying to actually bring a solution for, so that I understand. So I think curiosity, and that's a good point to start from, to be able to lean in, to listen, to understand all the sides of the stories, of the arguments, of the options, and then to be able to distill that down into what really matters.
Any follow-up question to that?
Fine.
Elaine, you live up in the northeast part of the town. It's an area that we sometimes overlook, to be frank and honest. What do you see us doing to pay greater attention to the Rosemont area?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I wouldn't say the Rosemont area. I mean, I like to say this is the four corners of the world, because we have Adjourn, Pomona, and Mulmer. So that's the four corners of the world up here. But I do think we have a lot of very rural homesteads. And I think we tend to drive through. We don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on Highway 89, on Airport Road, on Highway 50 isn't that far from us, but I think not just here, but everywhere, I believe we need to focus on community resilience and neighborhood, and being able to have opportunities for people to connect where they live. And Mono is a fabulous town, and I'm connected, north, south, east, and west in Mono. But there are pockets of Mono where people don't get necessarily outside those pockets, and we need to be able to create neighborhoods within those pockets so that we have a very resilient community, a community where people feel like they belong. And so I wouldn't call it Rosemont, but I would say that in the northern area, from Hockley Road up,
have opportunities.
Oh,
Excuse me, if I think they've muted. Thank you.
Oh.
Sorry, Elaine.
sorry. I think I've lost my train of thought, but there you go. I think we need to pay attention to all neighborhoods and all citizens of Mono. And I think it's good that somebody lives up in this corner, in the far corner, because that's where I drive, that's where I shop, that's where I see people. And so being able to sort of cover off all of the corners is a good thing. We're not a ward system, and I know we don't want to be a ward system, but at least we would have eyes, ears, and people in all, areas of Mono. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. It does indeed. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for applying for the position, and your service to the community is noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Your Worship, Matthew Donovan is next to present.
Good evening, Council.
Yes, Mr. Donovan. The floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. First, I thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. As someone who first moved to Mono in 2008, I understand the appeal and the beauty of this town. It's not for everyone. While I was at university, I had friends from Toronto who couldn't wait to move out of Waterloo and get back to the big city. For me, I was the complete opposite. I felt at home here, and I was so proud and so happy to be able to move back to Mono after I finished my schooling. I understand the importance of local government, and as I indicated in my letter, I truly believe that all individuals with the ability to do so should always get involved in the communities in which they live. With regard to my experience professionally, I currently work at Sun Life, and I was a former board member with the Waterloo North Condominium Corporation, where I lived. Through both, I have plenty of experience with budgets, and in fact, our recent budget at Sun Life this past month that I was involved with dealt with similar inflation challenges to what we'll be likely facing here, negotiations over what work can we do and can we not do with the work that we have, etc. And at the Condo Corporation, again, I also dealt with regular meetings, ongoing items, dealing with the residents and really fighting for the best bang for our buck where we lived and dealing with the ongoing issues. At Laurier, I have experience as a teaching assistant and as a case competitor. And as I highlighted in my letter, I think there's a good number of similarities between both of those and this role here. As a teaching assistant, I was that main point of contact for students. In this case, it would be residents. I worked with the course coordinator to create policies, procedures, and systems for everyone to abide with, bylaws, and I also worked to redesign and reshape the course for future years. This is setting our official plan. Also, I represented Laurier on the world stage, putting together ideas and solving real business problems that real companies had. I look forward to the opportunity to represent Mono locally and perhaps, at the Municipalities Conference of Ontario and things like this, fighting for our residents, advocating for what we need. However, what I want to focus on today is the next 12 months. Mono Council already has a lot of in-flight items, as evidenced by the unfinished business list, but there's also the upcoming 2022 budgets for the town and the Rosemont Fire Board, COVID-19 vaccine mandates, a general return to life after what I hope is the COVID pandemic, and also potentially fallout from the 2022 provincial election, which will happen before June. I mention these things because I strongly believe the priority tonight needs to be on identifying which candidate can best help Mono over the next 12 months. I intend to run in the municipal elections next year, something I hope all candidates will commit to. And at that time, I look forward to hearing everyone's vision for the next 5, 10, 20 plus years into the future. One thing I'm quite hopeful for is that we can continue to prioritize rural internet access and make Mono even more of a desired destination for individuals like me who are able to take advantage of remote work. I also think we need to focus on balancing economic growth and new subdivisions while still preserving the nature and beauty that we have around us. But as I said, I think today we need to focus on today. I'm worried personally about the increasing costs and CPI numbers, as Deputy Mayor Nix pointed out, and the impact they will have on our budget, especially because many Canadians have not received similar salary increases or have even experienced salary drops or job losses during this pandemic. I also hope that as the COVID situation gets better, we can improve with what's going on here at home. My past experience means that right from day one, I will be a strong contributor. As I mentioned, although I've been watching council meetings after I moved back to Mono, I went back and watched all the meetings back to May of 2019. This means I won't be using next Tuesday's council meeting to get up to speed. I'll be a strong contributor right from day one. And if council wishes, I can join and attend the Centre Dufferin Recreation Complex board meeting next Wednesday, since I know the hope was for that incoming councillor to join both that board and the Rosemont Fire Board. Now, I'm the type of person that says yes to every opportunity to learn, so I will certainly take up Mr. Haluka and Deputy Mayor Nix on their offer to learn more about the budget. But I know I can also rely on my past experience to provide strong, meaningful contributions from day one, and we may be able to move up the budget timelines and get it done by Christmas, as was done in the past. As a council, I trust that you want to appoint a candidate who's familiar with the work you've done over the past 2 years and work cooperatively with you over the next 12 months. I think that I'm the candidate that fits that bill. And with that, I thank you for your time tonight. We'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nix.
Yes, Matthew, and I will say that your resume and your presentation shows that you have familiarized yourself with council's business over the last couple of years, and I compliment you on that. I just want to ask a small question. You said in your resume that you worked for, was it Barb Shaughnessy, a regional councillor from Caledon? But that's all you said. And so I was just curious, what I mean, did you do policy work, or were you responding to letters from residents, or what type of work did you do for Barb Shaughnessy?
Primarily, I managed her internet marketing, digital marketing, website, Facebook page, that type of thing. There was some communication that came in from residents, but primarily it was making sure that the information that she wanted to share with the constituents and wanted to hear from the constituents could be put together. So it was primarily website, Facebook, Twitter, that type of thing.
Okay, I mean, I don't mean to be, I was wondering if you actually did, knitted down and did any policy work for her, but I hear your answers. Thank you.
Further questions, follow up? Councillor Mantalo?
Thanks for applying. It's nice to see someone whose hair hasn't turned gray or they've lost it applying for this position. Does your job allow you to do daytime meetings? You know, as you probably know, some of our council meetings are at 9 a.m.
Through your worship, yes, certainly. It does. I have lots of flexibility, both in terms of the hours of work, and I also am perfectly able to take vacation time or paid time off, unpaid time off as the need fits. But certainly, yes, I'm well aware of the need for daytime meetings, as well as other business that may come up, special council meetings, committee work, and so certainly well prepared to handle all of those. I certainly do intend to give this 100% of the effort it demands.
And a follow-up question, Your Honor.
Yes.
Matthew, what do you feel there's any direction that council should be taking the town of Mono that we aren't presently doing?
Thank you for the question again, through your worship. I think the one thing, and I know Deputy Mayor Nix has talked about it in the past, I don't think we certainly need to go down this path, but I think the fact that the town of Mono currently has no debt and has always stayed away from debt is something that, not that we need to spend right away, but that we should always be keeping in the back of our minds. I know we may be dealing with high increases to the budget this year. It may be an opportunity to take out a little bit of debt at this point to minimize the increase that the taxpayers and the ratepayers in the town of Mono will have to pay. And we look to pay that back over the next couple of years to make it a little bit more gradual. Again, I don't know. We need to look at it, explore all of the options. That was something that I mentioned on the condo board. We were basically dealt with a lot of costs over the next couple of years, but the repairs and the work would have paid for itself over 30 years. So we're fixing a window now, but it's going to stay in for 30 years. It may make sense to take out a little bit of a loan to amortize that cost out. I don't think this is a problem the way it's done. In fact, I'm always of the mindset that you shouldn't spend money you don't have. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that the people in the town of Mono, again, as I mentioned, have all been affected differently by this COVID pandemic. So I certainly think it's something we need to explore. But similar to the previous answers, I'm very happy to live in Mono, to have lived in Mono, and so I don't think there's any challenges, but perhaps just areas to explore.
Your Honor, I really enjoy it when Fred Nix nods his head and smiles at the same time.
I noticed that.
Matthew, the background there is, I've lost that argument with my fellow council.
Well, any follow-up questions of Matthew? Matthew, I'm impressed that you've taken the time to go back and watch council in action, albeit by virtue of YouTube since the inception of coverage. What's your overwhelming impression? Are we getting more right than wrong? Are we tackling the problems that you see that we have? Are there any issues that we should be addressing that we aren't?
I'm sorry, Your Worship. I think my camera has cut out. I caught the tail end of your question, which was, are there issues that we should be addressing which we are not? Is that correct?
And your impression from watching us in action, because that's certainly gives a perspective on how well we're doing our job. And as an outsider, what's your overall impression having watched all those hours and hours of council meetings?
In general, as I say, I think the council works very well. I've seen, snippets of other councils or politics on the grander level, and again, I be cautious with what I say, but I may say at higher levels it could be theater. Whereas I think now real work is getting done. I do think the one area that I think we need to be continually focused on, and Your Worship, I know you yourself are doing this, is being more active on social media, in the Facebook pages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, going to where the residents are. I think 50 years ago, it may have made sense to have one large meeting at a town hall that people attend. But I think nowadays people raise their feedback, they ask their questions in many different ways. And I know council has approved, the video teleconferencing system. So even though when we go back to council, we may be able to have remote delegations, allow people to present and things like that. I think that's the one area that we need to look at, is look at where can we embrace technology? How can we make sure people are being heard from, but we're sending the information out? But I think in terms of the day-to-day, I don't see any issues with how council's doing its job, other than, again, perhaps the opportunity for more feedback or better feedback from residents by leveraging technology a little bit more.
Thank you. Any last questions for Matthew? Well, Matthew, thank you very much for your application and your presentation this evening.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Your Worship, we have Manjeet Tynd. And Manjeet, I apologize if I've mispronounced your name.
Absolutely not, Fred. Let me go to my camera. Yes.
Good evening, Manjeet.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not able to connect my camera. Sorry for that. Yes. No. I don't know. By some reason, I'm not able to connect you guys.
That's okay. And if internet is an issue in this town.
Yes.
We can
yes,
see you now.
Yes. All council members and mayor, actually, you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have my 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I probably wonder, like, I am new to Mono, and I have been learning about Mono a lot, and I love this place, and I love the beauty of Mono, and being a resident of Mono right now, and I believe what represents like the part of community and aligning myself with 3 E's, environment, economy, or equity, when we talk about it in daily life. I believe in making better tomorrow by improving well-being of our residents. I am glad that more and more Ontarians are making Mono their home. And as present, everybody, like, Mono is an attraction. And I want to take like every aspect of and experience of my career to be a best candidate and to tackle the residents' issues in daily life and ways to resolve and feel stronger community members. Like as a resident of Mono, I feel like, especially, I didn't, when I moved to this place, there was little issues that I had to go through, but I believe that Mono is the best place to live, and I am looking forward to work with, and I am ambitious, hardworking, and ready to work with all to take Mono to the next level, to keep the roots of Mono as it is, beautiful nature, because I know when you are talking about your budgeting and everything, there are issues. And when people talk about budgeting, the new buildings, new stuff coming in so that we can grow our community and build our neighborhoods. And I feel like I would be happy to be as a part of a council and to help my residents and awareness, to have a like awareness about the bylaws and stuff, because most of the people don't know about the bylaws. That's the main, but bylaws are still there. And my intention is to lead and represent great community towards a better future of Mono and encourage the residents to participate in a decision-making process. Thank you very much for your attention and giving me opportunity to express. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Manjeet. Any questions? Fred?
Yes, I read your resume. It's impressive. Do you have any experience with any organization in helping them to set budgets? Have you ever done that for any organization?
No. To be honest, I didn't did any budgeting or any, only the small budgeting for my own. Like we are in a business, a small business owner, and we do the budgeting for our business, but I didn't did for any big firm or something, to be honest.
And if I could do a follow-up, Your Worship.
Yes.
As I asked a previous candidate, if this year when we start to set the budget, it turns out that we're going to have to exceed the consumer price index, we're going to have to raise expenditures more than we really want, what would you do? Would you chop some services that we now provide? Would you tell our public works department they're only going to do one snowplow shift a day? Or would you possibly consider borrowing money? Or would you say forget the rule about keeping tax increases to the rate of inflation, but increase them more this year? How would you solve that problem?
Actually, I would not increase the tax, and I will not say that the important work or which is very important for the for Mono should be cut off or do, but the unnecessary stuff that is not needed right now, it should be cut off. But the needs of the people, what right now they need, it should be there.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up questions? Sharon?
Good evening, Manjeet. Do you subscribe to the theory that increased residential development will reduce the tax burden?
Yes, why not? Like when we are building, when we are bringing, sorry if I didn't get your question wrong, you mean to say if we are bringing more neighborhood around? Right? Right, Sharon?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and if we are bringing more neighborhood around and we are increasing our residents and we are having more taxpayers and we can have more opportunity towards our financing and our budgeting, like we have funds, more funds.
Sharon, you're on mute.
Yeah, that answers my question. Yes.
Thank you. Ralph?
Thanks for presenting that to us today and applying. I appreciate it. What is the family business? Is it real estate?
We are in real estate and we are basically in trucking.
Okay. You mentioned during the COVID period that you had been involved with raising money. I think
Yes.
you mentioned $5 million. How did you do that?
That's the it's a membership. It's a charity that I was one of the main contributor, and we did in our society and everything. And basically we raised money around, and we did basically the manager of this, Junaid Alvi, he was the main who arranged this everything, and we contributed and collected the money together.
So,
Because at that time I was I got COVID too, and I was sick for a month, and from there we got involved into these all little things to do together.
so do I understand it that your customers contributed the donations?
Yes, yes, we all together did contribution. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Manjeet? Manjeet, I see in your letter that you were contributing vegetables to the community. You live in a rural part of Mono, and
Yes.
thank you. And tell me a little bit about your affinity for Mono as an agricultural center, because we do still have farmers, we still do have considerable agricultural activity. Is that something that you're particularly interested in?
Yes, actually, when I was I just said that I got COVID and I was sick for a month, and then I just we together as a family, we tried to make it that is the soil good for growing and stuff. Then we tried to grow so. But it was great. It was great. Our soil of Mono is very great to grow vegetables and to grow other number of I did mustard and other vegetables, and it was great land. And I feel farming should be people should look into as a farming as a business.
Thank you. Any further questions for Manjeet? Manjeet, if I could, running for council in the next election is a possibility?
Maybe, because I will be considering it for sure, because I want to be part of this community, and I feel like I should involve, and I will be surely.
That's completely fair. That's a year away, and a year is a lifetime in politics and governance. Thank you very much for your application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have John Buck.
Hello, my name is John Buck. I'm giving my 5-minute presentation. Mayor, councilors, administrators, and attending residents of Mono, my 5-minute presentation follows. First, I'd like to summarize my education and experience. I have a commerce degree, McMaster University, and a CPA, CGA designation, and in fact, a life member. I've had management business experience in both public and private sectors, public being 6 years with the Etobicoke Board of Education before they were amalgamated. I've worked as a resource for taxpayers and small business franchisees in the taxpayers in the public sector and small business franchisees with care operations, restaurants. Secondly, I've been a taxpayer and resident of 5-year resident of Mono. I did a house build for myself on the first line just south of the 20th. It's a 40-acre wooded property. Some of my neighbors call me the guy that lives in the woods. I've been a several decades resident of Brampton since high school, actually, prior to moving to Mono. I was a 20-year seasonal cottager resident of Huntsville, Ontario. I built my own cottage. Thirdly, municipal and volunteer experience. I was full-time 6 years, as I mentioned previously, with Etobicoke Education. That included attending monthly board meetings as an administrative resource. Part-time, I did 4 years as a ratepayer on the ratepayers group, Citizens for Better Brampton, who was quite active in trying to keep, how to say this, the Council of Brampton a bit on track, where I think everybody knows there's been some really interesting things that have happened down there. I was 2 years on the board of the Huntsville Area Cottages Association as the finance resource. And I was 6 years with the Canadian Ski Patrol, on-hill first aid and safety at Towson Resort and Caledon Ski Club. Sorry? I'm sorry?
Mr. Bakshi, if I could, oh, they've muted, so you can go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Somebody had their mic on.
Okay, no problem. So fourth, suggestions for improving quality of life for residents and ratepayers of Mono. I didn't invent that. Mr. Fred Simpson had that in one of his emails, and I liked it. I think we need to, I would humbly suggest that you need to speed up the expansion of fiber optic and a high-speed cellular service in Mono for internet, television, home phone, and security system service. I imagine most people have seen what's going on just directly south of Shelburne, where they're burying fiber optic cable in a lot of areas. Mono seems to be left out. I understand the SWIFT project, but Mono seems to be left out of this whole thing as far as getting people connected. Road improvements, my suggestion based on some experience up in Huntsville, I think some of the rural roads might be good to be surfaced as something called high flow, which basically they put down stone and spray tar into it. It's fairly close to asphalt, but they don't bring it in trucks. And it's quite an effective way of some of the rural roads, and it's very cost effective. They've come up with something new, which I noticed just when I was leaving Huntsville, where you can actually resurface that type of road with some kind of machine that they pour powder into and it comes out black, and they put about an inch layer on top of the road, and it seems to give the road more life. And again, it's very cost effective. Finally, I think based on a lot of experience as recently as yesterday, I think they need to expand. I understand this is federal and provincial, but I think they need to expand and improve that's where the money comes, many healthcare access in Mono and Dufferin County by advocating for it with provincial and federal levels of government. There's currently a crisis in healthcare delivery. I experienced that personally yesterday. And it's coming from Brampton, I've learned that Brampton had one hospital for a very long time, whereas places like Mississauga had 4. When I went to school in Hamilton, they already had 3 or 4. The lesson to be learned here is you must advocate and get the attention of the provincial and federal levels if you want proper health care in your community. Thank you for considering my application for this vacant council position.
Thank you very much. Questions? Fred?
Yes, John, thanks for that presentation. You said a couple of things, though, that leave me with a question mark. That we must do something about high-speed internet, that we must do something about healthcare. I don't disagree with that, but and residents have said that to me for 12 years or 11 years. I'm just confused as to what exactly a local municipality can do about those things. We do write letters or talk to our provincial and federal governments, usually without much effect. But if you were on council and you think we should do something about high-speed internet, what is it a town like Mono can do? What can we do?
I think it gets down to getting the attention of the provincial and federal. I understand the SWIFT program, and I've read it, what stands out about the SWIFT program, and the map of the first thing is Mono basically is a wasteland when it comes to in putting in the fiber optic cables in. I understand there's other alternatives such as the cellular 5G. Personally, at home right now, both my cell phone and my internet service are off the bell towers at off Highway 10. I guess it's 4G. On my particular property, you can't get a Rogers signal. The only thing that's out at the road right now is about telephone wires, underground telephone wires. Somehow, right now, if you drive down along south from Shelburne, there's a lot of, I think it's North Frontenac is a company, there's a lot of fiber optic cable being buried. If they can do it, why can't Mono do it?
Okay, thank
Follow-up
you.
questions? Sharon?
Good evening, John. Going forward, do you see any threats to life as we know it in Mono?
Yes. I talked to a woman who's on the 8th line in the area of here, Ontario, in the 8th line. Her and her husband, she mentioned she was out whacking weeds in the ditch, and there's an issue going on with land use, which I think everybody knows about in that particular corner. She mentioned that her and her husband sold and moved out of Callan and moved to Mono because a lot of the rural properties around them were being turned into trucking businesses. I appreciate that the mayor has said that you guys will enforce the existing bylaws, and I commend that. You know, if a property is zoned residential agricultural, then that's what the uses should be of that property. I hope I answered your question.
Ralph?
John, you mentioned healthcare as being something that was deficient here. I'm not sure whether I'm misquoting you. I think you said access to healthcare. Is that right?
Yes. Just how to say this? The hospital is fairly small. Most people that I've talked to go to other places, Guelph, Collingwood, Barrie, and it was similar in Brampton. Most of the people, because they only had one hospital, was completely insufficient. They went to Credit Valley in Mississauga. Yesterday, I had the experience of going to my doctor. There was an incredible lineup. I went across the highway to the walk-in clinic, and the procedure there was that you left your phone number and you get a call back, and I did get a call back from a very experienced doctor, and you know, I'm prepared to go that route for healthcare. The Orangeville Hospital, my experience has been they don't have a diagnostic equipment. I told someone that I had a CAT scan where they put a sort of a thing over my head, and I sat in a chair, and this was to a doctor, and he said he doesn't believe me. I think it's fairly common in a lot of areas in Ontario where they just don't have the diagnostic equipment. But as an example, when I was living in Brampton, I was supposed to wait 6 months for an MRI. My sister lives in Grimsby. Because Hamilton has a lot more hospitals, her son got an MRI in 2 weeks. So I think there are improvements, and I understand the funding is at the federal and provincial level, but getting their attention to be out is at the municipal level, I think. I hope I answered your question.
That's fine, thanks.
Thank you, John. I just want to follow up on some of the comments you made about road surfacing. We've had a debate for as long as I can remember between those who like our gravel roads because they give us a rural character versus those who wish to pave them or treat them in such a fashion that they're effectively paved. Attendant with that is increase in speed, but most importantly, quite a significant hit on our budget. If you were on council and you had the choice between extensive road paving or treatment versus increasing in taxes, how would you decide?
I'm not advocating, I would decide for not increasing taxes. I'm not advocating for extensive paving. I think there's certain roads that could be helped out by a cost-effective high flow. I live on the first line EHS. I think it's one of the few roads that still hasn't got the sort of crushed limestone treatment on it yet. So, you know, to be honest, as far as the speed goes, my understanding is that any road that doesn't have a sign on it, the speed limit is 80. And on my road, even when two cars pass each other in opposite directions, you have to really go over to the side of the road, and both cars doing 80 isn't doable. And I'll be honest with you, I'd like to see that limit drop to 70. But I'm not in favor of higher taxes.
Thank you. Any further questions of John? Well, John, thank you very much for your application and your interest in the position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's Melinda Davies' turn.
Good morning. Good evening, Ms. Davies. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And councilors, I've been, wow, dry throat all of a sudden. Excuse me. Thank you very much for taking the time to read my personal statement. I think I'm the best candidate for the vacancy. I have substantial adjudicative skills, and I always endeavor to be unbiased, open-minded, and fair. And I will balance the needs and wants of our residents with the interests of the municipality, should you choose me. I'm experienced in conflict resolution, as well as working under stress and pressure in complex decision-making situations. I've honed my communicative skills through my years of pediatric practice by listening first and foremost to my patients' concerns, and then carefully explaining complex issues by breaking them down to understandable parts. I work well independently, and I would, you know, if be on a subcommittee or so on, would bring the information back to council to then work collaboratively on policy or decision making if that was needed. I'm available. I'm newly retired. Specifically, I'm interested in our town heritage and culture, along with the parks and recreation. I bring to the table a wealth of experience with respect to event planning and community service through Sport for Life, and recently my work on the Town Recreation Advisory Committee. Though I am equally interested in our town infrastructure and our business interests and the other spheres of jurisdiction of our council. So I'm eager to learn and serve wherever needed to be a contributor. I'll bring fresh eyes and ears to the table, albeit with an air of wisdom through age, and a humble open-mindedness to work collaboratively with you in service to our town. So thank you very much for considering my application.
Thank you. Ralph?
I'm interested in your experience on the discipline tribunal. Could you tell me what you, as a particular unique individual, brought to that tribunal?
Well, the tribunal, as you know, professional bodies have been self-regulated, and over time, that self-regulation has come into question and so on. So I was there for 17 years, and I was an appointed physician member of the committee. So each panel which adjudicates over the discipline hearings for physicians, is made up of 5 people, 2 legislated to be 2 public members, which are politically appointed, and then 3 doctors, one of which is a council elected person, which just by the by, those positions are no longer going to be elected, and then 2 appointed members. So I brought, being the feet on the floor kind of angle of being a physician, though each panel was not at all the specialty that the doctor had. That wasn't how you got on the panel. It was more just the overall, professionalism. It's a professional misconduct hearing. So that was what I brought to it. Mostly, though, as with everything, when you join into a committee, it takes a while. There was a huge learning curve because it's a very formal legal process where we had independent legal counsel and, the 2 parties, the CMPA representing the lawyer and the college representing, or the lawyers representing the college, in a very formal setting. So we had to learn an awful lot about the Regulated Health Professions Act, in which case, each year and each hearing that you did, you would get more experience, to the point where eventually I was running the pre-hearing conferences and really, I'm losing the word, helping the parties to solve some issues before the hearing, on a one person being the adjudicator, as opposed to being a part of a panel, where I was chairing the hearings.
Second question, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
Why did you come to Mono?
Oh, I came to Mono because it's an amazing place. Everybody has said that. I
didn't hear you. Because of what?
Because it's an amazing place. Because of the outdoor activities. I'm a mountain biker, and so I was training for races and so on. And there's nothing like gravel roads, and so don't change our gravel roads. But also the trail connection, which, to be honest, when I first came, I was not aware I was on the Bruce Trail and not supposed to be there on some of the times. I know I don't do that anymore, but it's just so peaceful and so wonderful. So I really wanted a place, and then all of the mountain biking that I was doing, I was going someplace else. I was living in downtown Toronto, and I was always going someplace to ride the bike. And so what I really wanted was my own place. So I purchased a wood lot here in 2014 and built 10 kilometers of mountain bike trails. And so now I ride my own trails. I also go to Mono Provincial Cliffs and stay on the designated trails. And I go over to Dufferin Forest once in a while, but mostly I stay on my own piece of paradise.
Fred.
Yeah. Melinda, as you know, I'm an active Bruce Trail member, and with the exception of the Bruce Trail through Mono Cliffs Park, which do allow bicycles, we ordinarily don't allow them, and my wife and I spend some time chasing cyclists off the Bruce Trails. It's not that we don't like cyclists, it's just we don't build our trails to the standard that can take bicycle tires. That wasn't my question, that was just a statement, okay? So if I catch you on a Bruce Trail, you know what I'll do. My question is this: we have a real thorny issue before us, and you're a doctor. So I'm going to ask you about vaccination policies. I'm not going to ask you whether you believe we should all be fully vaccinated. I suspect your answer is yes. The problem we're going to have before us at our next council meeting is more difficult than that. Do we introduce a policy that requires all of our employees and anyone who sits on a committee or anyone who has anything to do with the town, like our engineering firm, do we pass a policy that mandates that they must be vaccinated? And if they're not vaccinated, they face suspension without pay, and after 6 weeks, termination. I asked you that question, and I'm sorry, Your Worship, if I'm going on too long, but here's the context. On the one hand, and we on council are all vaccinated and happen to believe everyone else should be too. But on the other hand, people have rights, and if they don't want to be vaccinated, I guess that's one of their rights. But the other side of the argument is we have labor legislation which says we must provide our employees who are vaccinated with a safe working place. So do we allow someone who's unvaccinated to come and work with them? Now that's the question we're going to debate at next week's council meeting. Which side of the debate would you come down on?
I think at this time where we are in the world, we need to mandate vaccination. There is no question but that it is safe. Millions of doses have been given around the world. We're seeing that cases are lowering because people are vaccinated. The ones who you do read about who are ill, because there are still some, right? We're going to need it's probably going to be a 3-dose series that we need, right? We're in the middle of learning all of this. So to be cavalier right now with a minority opinion to put the majority at risk just doesn't seem to make any sense. And it's not a forever thing either, right? Like it's a at this time, they would be able to be reassessed. I mean, you never know, we may be able to come up with, I mean, the vaccine isn't necessarily 100%. We don't know that it's going to be lifelong immunity. Excuse me. We already have, as I was going to say there, that the people who are in hospitals who are vaccinated and unwell, they're again those vulnerable people. You know, they're all over 65, and there's room for saying, oh, we need another booster, but so how long is that going to last? Is it going to be lifelong? We don't know. It hasn't been around long enough. We may come up with a drug that treats it. You know, there's all sorts of research being done. So I think at the moment, it's important to get back to the world working and all of us protected. And so I don't see anything wrong with mandating the vaccines. I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Thank you.
We've mandated it in our little nonprofit bike club. That
Sharon.
So to take us in a totally different direction now, how do you feel about more housing or commercial development in the town of Pomona?
I mean, you open that question with the phrase of how do I feel, and it's coming, change is happening. I think you need to embrace it and plan for it and think through all of the angles to make sure that it can be the least bad going forward. I mean, talk about where do you get revenue and so on, right? It's from businesses and taxes and things, and I think it's coming. So I personally have my little piece of paradise that I share it with anybody who wants to come. But yeah, things are changing. Things are changing.
I used feel on purpose.
Okay, well, no, yeah, I mean, yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda, just back to your experience of 17 years on the disciplinary body. You were appointed by what group or body to do that?
Oh, the council. So the physicians. So the council of the College of Physicians and Surgeons is made up by a council of elected physicians at the moment and appointed public members, like I say, politically appointed. Yep. And so that committee appoints the appointed physicians. So I applied.
And presumably the terms weren't as long as 17 years, so you were reappointed a number of times?
They were actually annual appointments.
Annual
appointment. And so if you were doing a good job, now governance and the sweep of everything that was old is no good, and we need to change everything. They now have instituted 3-year terms, of which you can only serve 3 and then you're out. So they wouldn't have a turnover. But like I say, there were not very many hearings every year that came to fruition, you know, or that were a contested hearing that you really would get experience. And then we were the decision writers. And so it took many years before you would get the experience to be able to really do a good job. So it was important to have the older people around, but yes, I'm a dinosaur there.
You referenced your involvement with pre-hearing conferences. Were those attempts at getting a resolution without going to a full-blown hearing?
Correct. We always were going to have a hearing. If you got to the point where there was a referral to discipline, they very rarely withdraw at that point because they've been investigated so thoroughly that there's something that can be found professionally misconduct. But it doesn't have to be a full-blown hearing. So, and in fact, a lot of them now, as in all areas of law, a lot of the disagreements are going as agreed statements of facts with agreed submissions on penalty.
Thank you. And how many years were you involved in the pre-hearing conference work?
10.
Okay. Thank you.
10. Thank you.
Any further last questions for Melinda? Well, Melinda, thank you very much for your application. Thank you again for your service on the RAC committee as well.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
And next up is Robert Bartoletta.
Mr. Bartoletta? Mr. Bartoletta, are you on online? Fred, I think we should go to the next candidate and return to Mr. Bartoletta if he returns. I see a Robert on our screen here, but he's X'd out.
Yeah, I see that as well. So I agree, perhaps moving on and give Robert some opportunity. And in the meantime, Andrew, if you're able to post something in the chat that might give Robert an option to be able to contact you or something, and see if we can sort out any technical issues. In the meantime, Harveen Dollywald then is next on deck.
Thank you. Harveen, welcome.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, and my fellow residents of Mono. My name is Harveen Dollywald, and I am a proud resident of the town of Mono. I am a wife, a mother to a 6-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. We have recently moved to Mono, last October to be specific. However, we have been interested in the area for a while. Having lived most of my adult life in Brampton, other than the 2 years when I was in New York for my master's, moving up north made me a little bit hesitant. But my husband was more than overzealous to move back up. He was raised at the old gas station, now the luxury car dealership place by the Teen Ranch. Within weeks of us living here, we were in love. Mono is like a breath of fresh air. The never-ending greenery, the hiking trails, the tobogganing hills, and the streams of water that are so refreshing, which is what has made this town the heart of the headwaters. The town of Mono is growing. It is growing rather quickly. Development is growing. New houses have come up. But how do we ensure to find that balance? The balance that is part of Mono's strategic plan. The balance between economy, environment, and equity. The 3 E's which Mono has tried to sustain. We don't want our small town to change to a city. This is why the Violet Hill Grand Gravel Pit Plan was strongly rejected by Mono Council, as the impact on the environment is immense. Yet, We want Mono to prosper and grow with the times. Council has done a great job of ensuring tax dollars are well spent. The environment is sustained and the economy is growing with diverse projects always popping up and happening. However, at this junction of time, we need to add some diversity, some new outlooks to assist us in moving forward. I feel I am that person. Having a strong economic background through being actively involved in our family businesses on day-to-day activities, I feel I can help Mono to move forward while ensuring to hold on to Mono's breathtaking landscapes. With what our federal and provincial governments are saying, the endemic should be here by the spring of 2022. We all have to work together to help Mono be stronger. Then, be stronger than it ever has been. How do we do this? We work together. Together as a council, together with the residents of Mono. We listen to small businesses, listen to their needs, wants, and fight to help get whatever we possibly can for them. We may be a small town, but we are strong. We have a phenomenal tourist attractions in Mono, attractions which are being overlooked and underrated. As Ontario reopens, let's work together to come up with a reopening of Mono. Let's show our beauty while boosting our economy and supporting our efforts. I truly believe with your experience and strong knowledge on Mono and my fresh ideas and outlooks, we can work together to reopen Mono. Let's build a more inclusive and sustainable future for our town.
Thank you. Fred Nix.
Yes, Harveen, you worked with your parents in a family business.
Yes.
Can you just elaborate what was your role? Sales, accounting, what did you do in that business? And what type of business was it?
So it's a hospitality, and we bring in tourism, we brought in sports groups. That was sort of the section that I worked in. It was bringing in things for development of youth and is that my mic?
Oh, I think Robert was trying to get back on. I'm not sure, but I saw. Anyway, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Harveen. But go on.
Go ahead, Harveen.
We were in hospitality, and my strengths was tourism and bringing in youth groups, bringing in sports teams. That was sort of that I had worked on. We are, we're in hospitality and we're in medical buildings and stuff like that. So
just so that I understand, you brought in youth groups and sports teams to do what? What did they do with what did your company do with these groups?
No, so we have hotels. And so we would work with the city to organize events in the city that would bring in groups, youth groups, soccer events, basketball events, and this would grow the economy through them staying in the city. At this point, in the city of Brampton, that's where one of our properties are. And we would grow restaurant businesses because obviously they'd have to go out and eat. And so in this way, it brought in revenue to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions of Harveen? Well,
We're hearing a lot of chatter here.
yeah.
Maybe coming from.
Excuse me, there's a telephone caller. If you go, thank you for going on mute. Go ahead, Ralph.
We talk often about preserving Mono for future generations. And you talked a little bit about how that Mono should be growing and developing. Let's say it's 50 years from now. Hopefully you're around and able to look back and see what has happened. What kind of a Mono would you like to see 50 years from now? What would be the changes?
I don't think there should be too many changes. I know change is going to happen, but I think it still has to keep that small town feeling. The changes that I see should happen is more based on bringing in people to experience Mono, going to Hockley Valley, going to, on Highway 9, the basketball center there, using those facilities, going to our restaurants to eat at. Yes, there will be more housing development. Yes, there will be development in that sense, but I think it's growing Mono in a way that the businesses can strive and restaurants can prosper, and this will help all of our budgetary issues and hopefully help the town grow in that sense versus just looking at a city like Brampton, who now all it has is subdivision, 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 and plazas. Every subdivision has a plaza, and in the plaza, you know, there's going to be a pizza shop, you know, there's going to be a convenience store, you know, there's going to be a nails place, and all they're doing is competing with one another. That's not the type of development we want. We want development that's going to show off Mono's beauty, that's going to want to make people come back to Hockley Valley. I know I cannot remember for the life of me the development that's happening on Highway 9 and Second Line. There's a restaurant, and I know they're building a big venue out there for receptions. It's a solarium venue. I cannot remember it, but those are the type of places we want people to want to come to. We want people to come have dinner there, come stay in a hotel, go to the farmer's market, go to the mom's market, go and enjoy the parts of Mono that will boost our economy, and they'll want to come back.
Follow up?
No, thanks.
Sharon?
Could you mention one thing you would like to see improved within Mono? Could be anything. Roads, more trees, whatever.
I think it needs to be a little bit more active on social media. I know on Instagram, there is a Mono site, and I know they post things here and there, but I feel a little bit, not being too pushy, but just pushing it a bit more would draw in a lot more attention. I've lived here for a year. It's not very long, but I love the farmer's market, and me and my kids have gone on hikes and trails, and we were driving one, it was in the summer, and they had the mom's market, and it was by the Boston Pizza, beside the Best Western. And all of us looked up and we said, oh, what's that? And so we went, and that was the only reason I knew about it. Where else it should be something I feel that's promoted, because these are, I know they're not just from Mono, but they're local residents, and they're trying to do something for the community. It's keeping it local, right? The new thing, shop local, eat local, stay local. We have to promote our town. If we ourselves don't promote our town, then we're not benefiting ourselves.
Thank you. Any further questions for Arvine? Arvine, so to summarize, you think we should do a better job of marketing ourselves?
Yeah, just to boost Mono. And like I said, when I thought the idea of moving up north, I was hesitant because we had driven around and we fell in love with our little subdivision, and we kept looking in this subdivision and nothing was coming up. And then finally a house came up and we jumped at it. I think a day it was on the market. And then I thought, oh my God, where am I going to get my groceries? And then I started to realize there's so many options. And I just feel like now when I tell people, oh, where do you live? And I say Mono, and they're like, where? And I'm like, oh, that's at Orangeville. And then they're like, oh, okay. I want people to say, I live in Mono, and they'd be like, oh, wow, that's awesome. You know, you want that energy.
I think we've all found ourselves in the position of having to put the town of Mono into the context of another municipality, or to say simply live north of Highway 9.
Exactly. By the hospital. They're like, oh, okay. So.
Any further questions for Arvine? Arvine, thank you very much for your application and your words of encouragement this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we may have Robert on the line now. So Robert, are you able to, at the very least, give audio?
I can absolutely hear you.
Robert, just a moment.
I don't think I'm able to see you.
There's a caller who is not on mute. Thank you.
I think that may be Robert. Robert, are you logged in twice by chance? I think we're getting a feedback loop between your calling in on phone and your login on another device. If you can ensure that one's muted or log out of one, I think we're going to be able to carry it forward. Andrew, did we lose caller 5? Okay. All right. So we're still experiencing some difficulty with Robert's connection.
Maybe we should go to the next candidate and we'll go back to Robert.
Okay. Robert, just one last chance. There's no, because we do seem to have lost you completely. So with that being the case, Mr. McRae is the next candidate online.
Very good. Thank you. You know, I've had a lot of time listening to everybody else here, and Robert is unmuted now. Should we let him speak since he was the next one?
Robert, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Robert? Bob, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You know, with all of the other people speaking, I've had a lot of time and was going to rehearse something here and talk about 9 spectacular candidates before me, and I don't know how you pick them, but now it turns out there's 8 good people before me. And of course, I was also going to use the leaving the best till last line, which I may or may not be able to use at this point in time. But I kind of laughed when my name came up last. At any rate, let me get on with the business at hand here. You've got my letter. Let me remind you of a couple of things here. I do have a degree in urban and regional planning, and there's been a lot of talk tonight about planning issues. And that also one of my big strengths is 35 years in professional customer service and sales, understanding people's needs and satisfying them, which of course is a big part of any municipal government. I have lived in Mono for 27 years, and I won't, you have it in my letter, but I have continuously volunteered and worked for Mono for 26 of those 27 years on the various committees that I have listed on my letter here.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Are we okay?
We're okay. So,
you know, I just emphasize the fact of 26 years having been on different town of Mono committees, oftentimes 2 or 3 of them at the same time. Primarily the planning advisory committees, which I've been the chair of for, I think, 23 of those 26 years. Here's a perspective that we need to think about. Next year, 2022, is going to be a year when all levels of government will be dealing with COVID recovery. And I think that Mono needs all council members to be experienced with the town's business. And certainly with my time on the different committees that I've been on, I can definitely say that I have a lot of experience with the town's business. So again, I think that this is one of my biggest strengths and qualifiers to take on this 1-year appointment. I'll hit the deck running. because of my involvement with that, will not be learning on the job during this important year. And I think that that's an important thing to consider. So in closing, and then looking forward to your questions, I view this councillor opening as a great opportunity to directly contribute as an elected official and to be directly involved with governance in Mono. And that, so I could anticipate some of your questions and that priorities for the coming year. The first one that comes to mind, which is something that during the last election 3 years ago, all of us supported, which is bylaw enforcement. And I think that this council in its last year as a council, I think that this is something that can really make a lasting mark to benefit the residents of Mono, and also to continue with the emphasis on customer service. Customers are our residents, and we always have to focus on that, both as a council and as staff. So with that, and I could talk about controlled growth, but I'm hoping some of you will ask questions about that. So I'll leave that to you for questions now, please.
Thank you, Bob. Ralph.
Thank you, Bob, for applying. I appreciate it. Could you elaborate on where you think we should be going with respect to bylaw enforcement?
Yeah, I think that we have to, it's time that Mono took this very seriously. And we did all talk about this during the election when we ran 3 years ago. I do think that it's time that we stop with part-time bylaw enforcement. And you know the issues that we've dealt with recently, and you know the stand that the planning committee has taken on a lot of these things. So I think we have to look at full-time bylaw enforcement, time that Mono grew up in that regard.
So it's just a lack of enough personnel to enforce our bylaws.
Ralph, absolutely. You know, when we're dealing with, and no disrespect to Eugene, but dealing with part-time bylaw enforcement with someone that lives all the way over in Grand Valley versus issues that need to be enforced here in our town of Mono.
Fred.
So you would be in favor, Bob, of increasing taxes to pay for this full-time bylaw enforcement officer?
I'm not sure that we have to increase taxes, Fred. Again, having not seen the budget, we need to accommodate it one way or another. So
Well,
however we do that, Fred, sometimes solutions need to be creative.
Okay, we'll debate that later, Bob.
Yes.
We did have a staff report that outlined the cost to us, and they're not insignificant. I was going to ask you a question that in some ways you've partly already answered, but you've run for council twice before, and we've sat together at all candidates' tables, and we've listened to the residents ask us questions, and I've heard some of your answers. So I sort of feel I know you fairly well. Let me turn the question around. How has the council that you didn't get elected to performed over the last 3 years? If you were on it, what would you have done differently than we have done?
Fred, I think the council has performed very well, and particularly the last year and a half, you've dealt with things that you never anticipated you'd have to deal with. And I think overall, you've dealt with them extremely well. Annette. So I bring up bylaw enforcement is probably one of the biggest ones, and it comes up again and again and again. So I think that it's important during this last year of this council to focus on that, and as I said, to focus on meaningful, more always customer service.
If I could just do a follow-up to that, Your Worship.
Yes.
What parts of customer service are we not doing well now? Is it communications? I don't know. Where are we falling down on customer service?
Fred, you've answered the question already. It is communication. And the only way that any organization can improve customer service is by communicating with those customers, understanding what their needs are, and then figuring out how to satisfy those needs. Fred, you and I recently went door to door in my neighborhood here with surveys to talk about entrance into the CVC. That to me was good communication and getting good feedback from the residents. So that's a specific example of things that can be done.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions of Bob? Sharon?
Sure, even though it's been partly answered because we got into how to involve council and the residents. So specifically, how would you propose to increase citizen engagement and participation in council business? What are specific steps to take? You can't be going door to door all the time, Bob. So there's got to be something else we can do.
Sharon, you're right. You can't be going door to door all the time, but we can communicate better. Some of the other candidates have already talked about social media, and I think that that will be one tool that we can use. But we don't have to go door to door. Sharon, I think about 50% of our residents are on town water. I get it. We get a bill every month, a water bill, and I'm always amazed that we don't insert another piece of paper in that to communicate more with those people. We know where every resident in Mono is. There's about 3,300 of them. We know where they all are. We don't have to go door to door, but using targeted mailings, direct mailings, and those sorts of things would be invaluable to understand what the concerns of residents are and what their needs are.
Any further questions? Bob, I'd like to return to something that came up in an earlier interview, and that was the issue of growth and the pressure from the province to increase our population and indeed other areas in Dufferin County increase their populations. Where do you see that growth occurring, and how do you see it happening responsibly?
John, it's a great question, and of course, my training in education and urban planning, I think, is invaluable with this. As you know, I'm in the Island Lake subdivision. Beside me is Fieldstone, the single biggest subdivision in our town, 350 homes. When I was the chair of the planning committee when that subdivision was proposed, and I supported it. Why did I support it? Because that location, it was one of the best locations for 350 homes in the town of Mono. I made a lot of enemies in my subdivision because I supported those 350 homes. So to me, there are two areas, the easy areas where we can accommodate growth. And it's simple. A child could understand it. Highway 9 and up Highway 10. And you all know, recently the Committee of Adjustment approved a variance for the hotel that is proposed there behind the Royal Chev Olds. And now, and it's on the website already, the Aragon proposal. I won't get into specifics of what I think about the Aragon proposal, but there's that piece of land there that if the Costco doesn't come in and put a Costco there, could be ideal for more homes in that area. Maybe not the 223-story townhomes that is on the plan right now, but it's there, and behind it is the 170 homes of Watermark, which was also a great location for concentrated development. And so these are the easy places to go. So up Highway 10, along 9. As for the province, if their insistence is that new development, residential development, should go where there's serviced land, then they're going to strike out in the town of Mono, as we all know. So, you know, we're not going to build a sewage treatment plant anytime soon. And, you know, goodness knows, even when we get a proposal for a handful of homes, or even one, the first thing where residents object to is the water table, taking water. You know, it's not residential, but the craft brewery on Mono Center Road, that every time that the planning committee has had some proposed development, the first thing that comes up is concern over water. So the province, province can threaten us with that. I thought, frankly, with the 350 homes in Fieldstone, I thought we were built out at the point in time. I thought it was 10 years, and I think there still should be 5 years left on that, if my memory serves me correct. Fred, you're nodding,
Yes,
but I know when that development went in, that took care of our commitment for 10 years. So, John, I don't know if that answers your question, but you know,
you touched on both the sewage constraints and the water constraints that we face, and the fact that we aren't fully serviced, and the difficulties of complying with edicts from Queen's Park. Any other questions of Bob? Well, Bob, thank you very much for the application and your presentation this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Good luck with your decision. It will not be an easy one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brad, have we had any success in reaching Robert?
Well, let's just see. Robert, have we got you on the line now?
I am on the phone.
That is
Can you
excellent.
hear me? Wonderful.
The floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Bartoletta, and I've submitted my application for interim councillor with the town of Mono with the intention of running in the next election for the same. I'm a 51-year-old University of Toronto graduate with a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in geography and urban planning. I'm married with 3 school-aged children. We moved to our little paradise in Mono in October of 2017. Early on in my sales and marketing career within the office technology sector, I was able to travel pretty much every part of Canada, from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria, BC, as far north as Churchill, Manitoba, Thunder Bay, Ontario, and Whitehorse, Yukon. My experience gained through travel and engaging in potential business opportunities at the municipal and regional level helped me understand the constant struggle smaller centers experience within Canada due to the economies of scale to provide service to ratepayers at an acceptable cost. As I acquired my own company within the GTA in mid-2005, I became involved in numerous outside organizations and charitable groups to help manage and raise funds for them. Some of these were basic, like the Appeal Condominium Corporation Board, Rotary Club, and the JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, which I chaired for the Telus Walk. In 2015, I sold my company and semi-retired. As a counselor, I'd like to focus on the ratepayers. At the end of the day, that's who we represent. The town official plan was last consolidated in November of 2018. Could everyone quickly imagine how external pressure on the town of Mono has changed since November of 2018. Even projections within the plan made with the best available data and intentions could have never projected what has occurred since March of 2020. We are experiencing the type of growth pressure surrounding us brought on by enormous escalation of land values due to the search for affordable housing and the pandemic real estate boom resulting from a paradigm shift in acceptable workplaces, in addition to abnormally low interest rates. These pressures will continue as affordability further diminishes, more millennial families search for a family home away from the city. With increased development will come additional requests for infill development and more requests for committee of adjustment hearings. The result end game will be growth. I see this opportunity as a great responsibility to help manage that growth in a logical and cost-effective way to not upset the delicate balance we constantly face with our ratepayers. I have a great set of people skills that have been developed throughout my career. I understand how to work within groups to allow tasks to be completed more efficiently. I welcome the opportunity to assist in representing ratepayers and the development and management of municipal policies affecting them. I must say, it makes me feel happy that 9 other people took the leap forward to serve the town. Being a councillor is not a job, but a passion. It is evident that all 10 of us have that same passion. I am a firm believer in the simple notion that our greatest asset is people, and feel honored to be included among you. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Robert. Fred next.
Yes, Robert, back to your comment about our official plan and it last being consolidated in 2018. What parts of our official plan do you think should be changed? I'm curious about that because you talk about us having to accommodate growth. So are you suggesting that we should take a look at our official plan and open up more land to either residential or industrial development? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, the reality of the situation is we're getting, as you mentioned earlier, you're getting pressure from the province already. And we're going to be trying to accommodate 2,000, you said 2,000 more people? Am I correct?
Yeah, well, they're saying we're going, well, this is not cast in stone yet. The consultant gave us a report that said we should get ready to be prepared to accommodate about 2,000 more people.
Exactly. So if we had to be ready to accommodate 2,000 more people, and we're looking at doing that, and we're faced with additional potential problems, knowing that trying to keep a tax rate base and a CPI index is going to be really, really tough in the upcoming budget, maybe it's time to look at some new revenue streams that would happen in some of this possible development if it was to happen. I'm a great purveyor of Hazel McCallion and the wonderful work she did in Mississauga for, oh goodness, over 40 years. And I watched that happen from a very, very young age when, Mississauga was a town of a city of 220,000 approximately during the Mississauga evacuation in 1978. And then all of a sudden grow to, almost 1 million people. I mean, they did it through development fees, obviously, but and some very, very good planning. And the reality of the situation is, can we prepare for it? Can we prepare for it without and using it as a tool to help the CPI situation? Possible. Have to look more into it, but it's possible. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I'm making notes, but thanks very much. Thanks very much for your answer.
Any further or follow-up questions? Robert, if I may, how do you square the fact that development charges really don't pay for the cost of development? They may well have in the time that Mississauga was expanding, but increasingly, I think most of us are of the view that development charges do not offset the true cost of development, which ends up being borne by ratepayers. How do you get around that, or do you disagree with that notion?
No, I don't necessarily disagree with that notion. However, do we need to examine what those development charges are? That is something that may need some examination, because you are absolutely right. Development charges don't cover the cost. They did 40 years ago, but we're in 2021. However, to be fair, in 2021, the cost of a single-family home has also completely changed versus 40 years ago, and I'm sure you'll all agree. Are the developers making more money? Possible. Can they bear a higher development cost per unit, per square foot? Possible. Can we get it to the point where it would cover for the services required for each development? Difficult to do. However, it can be looked at, and there are other ways.
Well, I think it's fair to say that when we review our development charges study, which we recently did, we look for every opportunity within that to maximize in a fair way what a developer will pay on a square foot basis in the case of industrial, commercial, or in the case of residents, a flat rate. But mindful of the fact that the province has constraints on that, and also there is a burden of proof that in fact those costs are incurred. It's just that we sense that sometimes we should be getting more than we actually can justify or actualize.
I understand.
Any further questions of Robert? And Robert, you indicated that you may well be a candidate in the next election as well?
Correct.
Thank you.
I would be a candidate in the next election.
So just to finish up, tell me what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong that would motivate you to run in the next election.
Well, when you phrase it in that sense, I don't think it's a matter of what the council is doing right and what the council is doing wrong. I really truly don't, because I look at the council that Mono has, and folks, let's be very honest here. Nobody's here for the money. You're here for your passion. I mean, you guys all do good work. You work hard. You do more than what's asked of you. And the reality of it is that you're in a situation where you're placed under constraints of our borders, with growth happening all around us, and then on top of that, growth being expected of you within our own township. So, as a matter of what we're doing wrong, I don't think the council is doing anything wrong. I think you're working as best with what you have. I think you're working as best with the resources that you have, and you're working as best with the people that you have. You once throughout in the past part of this meeting, you asked 50 years from now. You said, where do you see Mono in 50 years? Well, I definitely see a council position in 50 years having a lot more people to help and to get things done. And it's not that they're not getting done, it's just that there's only so many hands. And I look at the list of candidates, and I was one to read through all of the documents that were submitted in the candidacy, and I was just so impressed, and I said, wow. I said, if it was up to me, I would have a lot of these people helping, either in a committee format or in some type of format, to help, just because of their experience.
Yes, thank you. I should have probably said, what could we do better? But thank you for your application, Robert, and your enthusiasm and presentation this evening.
Thank you very much.
So Fred Simpson, I believe that brings us to the end of the interviews.
That's correct. The interviews are complete now, Your Worship. So next on the agenda would be the vote and whether council wants to take a bit of a recess, a 10 or 15-minute recess, both stretch and cast their votes.
Fred, I think you're going to vote for a break here.
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. I've made extensive notes, but I need 5 minutes or so just to go back through and sort of do a scorecard on each of these. And also, I wouldn't mind to stretch my legs for a minute.
Okay, I agree. Length of break is now 9:25. Maybe come back 9:40. And then have our vote at that point.
I don't think it has to be quite that long. Why don't we make it 10 minutes?
Sure, 9:35 then. And then when we return, we will break out into the special link to cast our ballots. So 9:35.
And if any members of council need a copy of their link and password, because the link and password is unique for each councillor. So just by all means, email or text me and I'll send that to you. It is in the email that I sent on October 15th.
So for everybody's benefit, we've just had a break, and I believe all members of council have cast the ballot.
Okay. And then Andrew, if you want to turn your mic off, and then you and I can confer by other means to ensure that it's not picked up over the live stream. And once the two of us have both agree on the votes cast, I will then report that to council.
We are back on live.
Okay, Your Worship, are you ready? Shall we carry on?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew and I have both independently checked the results, and we concur, and we do not have a winning candidate after the first vote.
Okay, in accordance with the process as previously described, council will go into a closed meeting pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the time of that will be 9:42 p.m.
Okay.
for personal matters about unidentifiable individuals to review council applications. Do I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Manctalo. Any opposed? That motion is carried.
Can I just check one procedural thing?
Yes.
So I hit leave on this meeting, and I go to the other tab to go into the in-camera meeting, right?
So you hit leave to leave this meeting. You're using the app, I believe, so you can then join a new meeting and put in the meeting ID of the in-camera session.
Okay, so I'm going to hit leave now.
That's correct.
I have a question. I have
Yes.
a question. The new meeting link, did we receive that from Andrew?
No, you received that from me in an email I sent on Friday afternoon at about 3 o'clock. It was the email that explained the procedures, and it's the same email that had the link for voting.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I know the one. Okay. So
Okay, I'm going to hit leave now.
I have to find that.
Well, we'll wait for you, Ralph. I'm leaving. Bye.
Would you like me to resend that email to you, Ralph?
I'm just doing a search under your name here. What day was that?
October 15th, somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I have it. I have it. It's
And if you scroll a fair ways down that email, you'll see the ID for the in-camera meeting, for the voting link, and the ID to come back to this meeting, so that it's all handy in one spot.
I have it. I'm clicking on it.
Got it.
Let's see if we get it.
Got it.
Okay, and Andrew, you'll keep this meeting running, and I too will be joining the in-camera session.
I should warn you, I'm going to be a little wild because I've got a slow speed here, and it's really taking its time to. It's 32 megabytes, and I'm at 7 at the moment.
To do what?
Connecting to go to meeting involves 32 megabytes, and I'm not halfway through it yet.
That sounds like you're downloading the app again, which shouldn't be required.
No, I just clicked on the link. I know I've had a downloading message before.
Well, we're certainly going to wait for you, Councillor Mantillo. Okay, and Councillor Martin, you're going to exit this meeting and join the in-camera meeting?
I hope so, just a sec.
This is not going anywhere.
Okay, I think I did it. I think I did it.
Andrew, are we on?
We are back live.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Due to the inconclusive ballot, we have gone in camera. We are now rising from the in-camera session at 9:58 p.m. To proceed with a second vote to select a candidate to fill the vacant councillor position. Do I have a mover for this motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now, if you will allow us to go to our secure page to cast a second ballot, we will return shortly.
Okay, so if after each member of council has voted, if you can just confirm for me when you've completed your vote, and I'll go in and check the tabulation.
I voted.
I finished.
And you have voted as well, Sharon. So we're just waiting for Mayor Creelman.
I voted.
Okay. So I will go off again at this point, and Andrew and I will independently check the results, and I will report back. Okay, Your Worship, there we go. Again, Andrew and I have both independently tabulated the results, and we do have Victor, and it is Melinda Davey.
My congratulations to Melinda Davey as the successful candidate for the vacancy on the council of the town of Mono. But I want to make a point here of thanking all candidates for having gone through this process, expressing your passion about the town. It's very heartening to know that so many people were prepared to step forward to indicate their desire to serve as a councillor. Again, on behalf of the council of the town of Mono, indeed all ratepayers of the town of Mono, I'd like to thank you, but especially congratulate Melinda on her appointment as a councillor for the town of Mono. As I previously indicated, we will be swearing Melinda into office at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, if I could just echo your thank you. I was really impressed with the candidates we had who came forward. And I'm sorry that all 10 of you couldn't win, but I would encourage you to think of 2022. You've got a year to get ready for it. Some of you have some very good qualifications, and I'd love to see you on council someday.
Absolutely. Melinda, not to put you on the spot, but are you still with us?
Yeah. Thank you very
Congratulations.
much for your vote of confidence in me. And yes, I have to echo what you and Fred have said. Well, and all the other councillors as well. That the candidates, wow, the other 9 people, very impressive. And we live in a great place. It is terrific here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So does any other member of council have anything to mention at this point? Yes, Sharon.
I would also, congratulations, Melinda. We might even get to meet in person sometime.
Yeah.
But I would also like to congratulate all the others who went through this process. And I too was impressed that there were 10 people who felt they had something to offer to Mono. And I agree with Deputy Mayor Nix that I hope there is one heck of an election coming up in 2022. Thank you all.
Ralph.
So in the background, there has been some chit chat between various people about wondering how many people or who might be running for the next election. And so this has been very heartening to me to see all 10 of you have an interest in this and to have people with passion for Mono, because that's really what we need. So thank you all for putting your the time and effort into this, and congratulations to Melinda for your success, and a thank you to Fred Simpson, who ran this. I don't think you've ever run anything like this before, Fred. You and Andrew Delmer. It went very, very smoothly, and I congratulate you on the performance.
Absolutely, and I'd like to add my compliments to Ralph's that this was not an easy process to contemplate, let alone put together and run so efficiently as it has been. A big thanks to Fred and Andrew for their work tonight. So I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to appoint Melinda Davey as councillor of the town of Mono, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Manctolo. And I'm happy to accept a second seconder. It's a little unusual, but anyways, any opposition to this motion? The motion is carried. Congratulations again. Are there any other matters of business that council would like to address at this stage? So I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Mono in session 22, 2021, held on 19th of October, 2021, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover to that motion? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Manctolo. Any opposition? The motion is carried. And finally, I have an adjournment motion that we adjourn this meeting at 9 minutes past 10 o'clock. And do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Manctolo. Any opposed? And that motion is carried.
So I'm hitting leave again. Bye.
And Andrew, let us know when the live stream is complete.